Have you ever felt your heart race and your palms sweat when talking to someone you're attracted to? That moment when your mind goes blank and you're scrambling for the right words, only to replay the conversation later, cringing at what you could have said differently. You're not alone. This kind of social anxiety around women is something countless men struggle with, and it can feel paralyzing. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy, tested by time and practiced by some of history's most disciplined minds, that can completely transform how you approach these situations? Stoicism isn't just about enduring hardship, it's about cultivating unshakable confidence, especially when it matters most. Picture this. 2,000 years ago, Roman emperors, generals, and philosophers faced battles, betrayals, and immense pressure, yet they remained composed, decisive, and magnetic in their presence. They didn't rely on tricks or manipulation. They trained their minds to stay grounded no matter the circumstances. That same power is available to you today. Stoicism teaches us that confidence isn't about being fearless, it's about mastering fear. It's not about never feeling nervous, it's about not letting nervousness control you. And the best part, these principles can be applied to modern dating and social dynamics with stunning results. In this video, we're diving deep into 20 Stoic techniques that will rewrite how you show up around women, or anyone for that matter. You'll learn how to reframe rejection, silence self-doubt, and project a calm, authentic confidence that draws people in naturally. These aren't quick fixes or empty affirmations, they're time-tested mental frameworks that build real resilience. Whether you're tired of overthinking every interaction or just want to feel more at ease in your own skin, what you're about to discover could change everything. Let's begin. One of the most powerful Stoic tools for building unshakable confidence is something called negative visualization. At first glance, it might sound counterintuitive. Why would you deliberately imagine things going wrong? But here's the secret. When you mentally prepare for the worst-case scenario, you strip it of its power over you. The ancient Stoics, like Seneca, called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's not about pessimism, it's about immunity. Take dating or approaching women, for example. What's the fear that paralyzes most men? Rejection. The thought of stumbling over words, being laughed at, or facing awkward silence can feel unbearable. But what if you've already played out that scenario in your mind not once but dozens of times, and you're still standing? That's the Stoic advantage. Seneca wrote letters describing how he regularly visualized losing his wealth, his status, even his loved ones. By doing so, he wasn't crushed when hardships came, he was prepared. Apply this to your social interactions. Picture yourself walking up to someone you're attracted to, and she outright ignores you, or maybe she gives a polite but disinterested response. Sit with that feeling. Notice how your heart still beats, how the world doesn't end. Now imagine the opposite. You handle it with calm indifference. You smile, shrug, and move on. No desperation, no collapse of self-worth. That's the mental rehearsal Stoicism trains you to do. Here's the key shift. Most people avoid thinking about rejection because it feels painful, but Stoics lean into it. They ask, what's the actual cost? Embarrassment fades, awkward moments pass, and when you realize you can survive the worst, something remarkable happens. The anxiety loses its grip. You stop overanalyzing every word, every glance. You start showing up as your authentic self, not because you're guaranteed success, but because failure no longer terrifies you. This isn't just theory. Think of warriors training for battle. They don't just visualize victory, they drill for retreats, for wounds, for chaos. That's how they stay composed when real danger hits. Your social battles are no different. By practicing negative visualization, you're not inviting disaster, you're building a fortress of resilience. And when you're no longer hostage to fear, confidence isn't something you fake, it's something you embody. The real power of negative visualization comes from turning it into a daily practice, not just a theoretical idea. Here's how you can apply it step by step, especially before dates or approaching someone you're attracted to. First, find a quiet moment, maybe in the morning or right before bed, and close your eyes. Visualize the interaction in vivid detail, but not the fantasy version where everything goes perfectly. Instead, picture the worst realistic outcome. Maybe she's distracted, unimpressed, or even politely cuts the conversation short. Feel the sting of that moment. Notice where your mind goes. Do you start spiraling into self-criticism? Do you feel your chest tighten? That's exactly where the work begins. Now, here's the crucial shift. Instead of recoiling from that discomfort, sit with it. Ask yourself, what's the actual consequence? Will the sun still rise tomorrow? Will you still have your health, your friendships, your passions? The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, separating what's in your hands from what isn't. Her reaction isn't yours to command, but your composure is. So replay the scene, but this time picture yourself responding with calm indifference. Maybe you chuckle and say, "Fair enough, have a great night," then seamlessly pivot to chatting with someone else. That's emotional resilience in action. To make this even more practical, try the 3 rejections drill. Commit to approaching 3 women in a week with the sole goal of getting rejected. Not as a self-sabotage stunt, but as a training exercise. Each time, notice how the reality of rejection feels nothing like the catastrophic version your anxiety conjures. Most of the time, it's a bland, forgettable moment, no crowds pointing and laughing, no permanent damage to your self-worth. The more you expose yourself to these worst-case scenarios, the more your brain learns they're survivable. Eventually, the fear loses its fangs. Another technique is the post-rejection debrief. After an interaction that doesn't go as hoped, take 5 minutes to write down 3 things. First, what actually happened. Strip away the exaggerated narrative your mind creates. Second, what you can learn, e.g., maybe I relied too much on rehearsed lines instead of listening. Third, one thing you did well, even if it's small, like maintaining eye contact or not over-apologizing. This builds what psychologists call adaptive resilience, the ability to grow from setbacks rather than be crushed by them. The Stoics weren't just passive observers of their emotions. They actively trained their minds like athletes train their bodies. Think of negative visualization as your daily mental weightlifting. At first, it feels uncomfortable, even exhausting, but over time you develop strength where you once had fragility. You'll start noticing subtle shifts, less pre-approach jitters, quicker recovery from awkward moments, and most importantly, a detachment from outcomes. That's when confidence becomes unshakable, not because you're guaranteed success, but because failure no longer defines you. And here's a bonus insight. This practice doesn't just help you handle rejection, it makes you more attractive. Women and people in general sense when someone isn't needy for their approval. That calm, grounded energy is magnetic. It's the difference between the guy who panics after a lukewarm response and the one who stays playful, unfazed. Negative visualization trains you to be that second guy, so the next time nerves creep in, remember, you've already survived the worst in your mind. Everything else is just life happening exactly as it should. Imagine you're about to walk up to a woman you find attractive, and your mind is flooded with questions. Will she like me? What if I say the wrong thing? Does she think I'm awkward? Here's the problem. Every one of those questions is focused on something you can't control. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus had a simple but life-changing rule. Some things are within our power while others are not. Confidence isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about directing your energy where it actually matters. Think of it like a basketball player obsessing over whether his shot will go in instead of focusing on his form, his footwork, his follow-through. The outcome, whether the ball swishes through the net, isn't up to him, but his preparation, his technique, his mindset, those are his to command. Dating works the same way. You can't control her mood, her attraction, or her past experiences, but you can control showing up as your best self, well-groomed, present, and authentically engaged. That shift in focus is liberating. Epictetus, who was born a slave and faced unimaginable hardships, taught that suffering comes from confusing what's ours to influence with what isn't. He famously said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Apply that to dating. You can't force chemistry, but you can choose to be someone who generates it through genuine curiosity, good humor, and emotional stability. That's the foundation of real confidence. Let's get practical. Make 2 lists. On one side, write what's in your control. Your preparation, like dressing well, practicing conversation skills, your attitude being open and positive, and your boundaries, not tolerating disrespect. On the other side, write what's not, her tone, her interest level, whether she texts back. The moment you feel anxiety creeping in, check which list your worry belongs to. If it's not on your side, let it go. This isn't about detachment, it's about clarity. Here's a quick test. If you're replaying a conversation, analyzing every word you said, you're stuck in the wrong zone. Instead, ask, did I show up authentically? Did I listen well? Those are the metrics that matter. The rest is noise. This mindset doesn't just reduce anxiety, it makes you more attractive. People sense when someone isn't seeking validation, and that's magnetic. To drive this home, think about actors auditioning for a role. They can memorize lines, bring their passion, and arrive prepared. But they can't control the director's preferences or who else is competing. The ones who thrive are those who focus on nailing their performance, then walk away without clinging to the result. Dating is your audition. Be the actor who owns his craft, not the one begging for the part. Epictetus' students used to complain about difficult people, and he'd respond, "Why be surprised that a fig tree produces figs?" If you're frustrated by someone's lack of interest, ask yourself, did I expect to control the uncontrollable? That's the Stoic reset button. Confidence grows when you stop trying to command the wind and start adjusting your sails. One last exercise. Next time you're out, talk to 3 strangers, not with the goal of impressing them, but purely to practice staying present. Notice how your energy shifts when you're not fixated on outcomes. That's the sweet spot, because real confidence isn't about being flawless, it's about being free. Free from the need to control, free from the fear of rejection, free to show up as you are, knowing that's always enough. Here's what most men get wrong when asking for a woman's number. They turn it into a high-stakes moment, as if their entire self-worth hinges on those 10 digits. Their hands shake, their voice cracks, and their mind races with desperate thoughts. What if she says no? What if she ghosts me? That's the exact opposite of Stoic confidence. The ancient Stoics would call this surrendering your sovereignty, letting an external outcome dictate your inner state. Let's flip the script. Picture 2 scenarios. First, the anxious approach. A guy stammers through a conversation, finally blurts out, "Can I get your number?" Then stands there like he's waiting for a verdict. His energy screams, "Please validate me." Now the Stoic approach. After a genuine exchange, he casually says, "I've enjoyed this, let's grab coffee sometime." What's the best way to reach you? No pressure, no desperation. He's already detached from the outcome before the words leave his mouth. That shift from seeking approval to offering an invitation changes everything. The key isn't the words themselves, it's the mindset behind them. When you focus on what you can control, being engaging, respectful, and present, the number becomes a natural byproduct, not a trophy. Think of it like a chef savoring the act of cooking, not obsessing over whether the customer cleans their plate. The Stoics called this Amor Fati, loving the process, not just the result. Here's how to practice this in real time. Before you ask, check your intention. Are you seeking connection or validation? If it's the latter, pause, recalibrate. Remind yourself, her response isn't my business, showing up well is. Then deliver the ask like you're handing her a gift, not begging for one. Notice the difference in your body language. Your shoulders relax, your breath steadies. That's confidence in action, and when the moment comes, don't hover anxiously for her reply. Offer your phone or suggest she inputs her number, then immediately shift the conversation elsewhere. By the way, you mentioned you love jazz. Have you checked out the new spot downtown? This does two things. It signals you're not hung up on the outcome, and it keeps the interaction flowing. Most men screw this up by freezing after the ask, turning the moment awkward. Now contrast this with the post-number anxiety spiral. The average guy spends hours dissecting her tone, her smile, whether she typed her number fast or slow. He's handed his peace of mind over to a text thread. The Stoic, he sends one clear follow-up, then refocuses on his life, his projects, his friends, his growth. He knows attraction isn't negotiated through overanalyzing, it's earned through authenticity and momentum. This isn't just theory. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire amid constant threats, wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Apply that here. You can't control her response, but you can control whether you turn a simple request into a referendum on your worth. That's the essence of Stoic confidence, standing firm in your own value regardless of the answer. Try this drill next time you're out. Challenge yourself to ask for a number without checking it immediately or obsessing over the reply. The goal isn't to win the interaction, it's to train your mind to stay grounded. Notice how freeing it feels when your confidence isn't chained to someone else's choices. That's the unshakable foundation Stoicism builds, one where you're no longer a hostage to outcomes, but the author of your own calm. Rejection doesn't have to feel like a door slamming shut. It can be the universe nudging you toward something better if you learn to see it that way. This is where Stoicism's concept of Amor Fati transforms, dating from a series of disappointments into a guided journey. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's wisest rulers, faced betrayal, war, and personal loss, yet he wrote in his journal, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That's the essence of loving your fate, not just tolerating setbacks, but embracing them as necessary steps. Think of it like this. Every no you hear is filtering out mismatches, clearing space for genuine connections. Imagine you're sifting through a pile of sand to find gold. Each handful that slips through your fingers isn't a failure, it's progress. The Stoics believed nothing happens to you, it happens for you. A woman's disinterest, that's her doing you a favor by freeing you to meet someone truly compatible. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, the obstacle is the advantage. When you internalize that, rejection loses its sting. Here's how to practice this mindset shift. After an interaction that doesn't go as hoped, instead of dwelling on why, ask what's next. The Stoics called this turning obstacles into fuel. For example, if she ghosts after a date, reflect, was I too eager to please? Did I hide my true interests? Use that insight to refine your approach. Maybe you'll prioritize authenticity over approval, leading you to attract someone who vibes with the real you. That's Amor Fati in action, seeing the loss as a lesson that propels you forward. Marcus Aurelius' journals are filled with reminders to accept life's flow. One powerful entry reads, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny." Apply that to dating, the person who wasn't interested. She wasn't part of the pattern, the awkward conversation that fizzled. It was steering you toward better social skills. This isn't wishful thinking, it's strategic reframing. Every great Stoic, from Epictetus to Seneca, trained their minds to interpret events this way, not as random hardships, but as tailored training. Try this exercise for 1 week. Keep a fate journal. Each time you face rejection or disappointment, write down 3 ways it might serve you. Maybe a cancelled date forces you to focus on your passion project, where you later meet someone who shares your interests. Or a lukewarm response teaches you to lead with curiosity rather than performance. The goal isn't to fake positivity, it's to actively seek the hidden thread of progress. Over time, your brain will start spotting these silver linings automatically. This philosophy also diffuses bitterness. Ever notice how some men grow resentful after repeated rejections, labeling women as flaky or shallow? That's the opposite of Amor Fati, the Stoic response, gratitude. As Marcus wrote, "The things which hurt instruct. Each no is a course correction, not a condemnation." When you truly believe that, your energy shifts from desperate to discerning, and that's when you become magnetic. Here's the ultimate test. Can you look back at past rejections and see how they led you somewhere better? Maybe a breakup freed you to travel, or a missed connection pushed you to improve your social skills. That's the Stoic lens. Dating isn't about collecting yeses, it's about trusting the process. When you stop resisting life's redirections, you'll find they were guiding you home all along. Let's put Amor Fati into practice with real exercises that train your mind to embrace discomfort, not run from it. Start with what I call the friend zone reframe. Most men dread being labeled as just a friend. They see it as a dead end, a failure. But what if you flip that script? Next time you sense a romantic connection isn't mutual, pause and list 3 benefits of the friendship. Maybe she introduces you to her circle, sharpens your social skills, or even becomes a trusted wingwoman. The Stoics didn't just tolerate setbacks, they mined them for value. Here's a drill. After an interaction where attraction feels one-sided, write down how this rejection could actually serve your growth. Did it reveal a pattern in who you pursue? Did it push you to communicate more clearly? This isn't about pretending disappointment doesn't sting. It's about actively choosing to see the gift wrapped in the struggle. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that difficulty shows what men are. The friend zone isn't a prison, it's a mirror showing you where to grow. Now, let's tackle awkward moments, those cringe-inducing silences or missteps that haunt you later. Instead of replaying them with shame, try the awkwardness alchemy exercise. First, recount the moment in vivid detail, but strip away the judgment. Then ask, what did this teach me about my triggers? Maybe you relied too much on rehearsed lines instead of listening, or you mistook nerves for lack of interest. Finally, script a new ending where you laugh it off. Wow, that came out awkward, let's try that again. Humor disarms tension, and the Stoics prized self-amusement as a tool for resilience. Take it further with the 5-year test. When embarrassment hits, ask, will this matter in 5 years? Most social blunders fade into forgotten stories if they're remembered at all. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That guy who tripped onstage at the awards show. People cheered when he got up. The date where you spilled your drink, it's only a deal breaker if you make it one. For deeper practice, try the rejection gratitude list. For 1 month, every time you face a romantic setback, a ghosting, a cancelled date, a lukewarm response, jot down one thing it freed you for. Maybe that flaky match saved you from months of half-hearted effort. Maybe the missed connection led you to a new social event where you met someone better aligned. Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." By loving these redirections, you become the kind of man who spots and seizes the right opportunities when they appear, the ultimate Amor Fati challenge. Plan a bad date night. Go into an interaction expecting it to go poorly, not as self-sabotage, but as immunity training. Order food you might not like, suggest an activity that's outside your comfort zone, and embrace the discomfort. The goal isn't to fail, it's to prove that even the worst outcomes are survivable, even instructive. Like a stoic sailor navigating rough seas, you'll learn to find your balance no matter the waves. This isn't about numbing yourself to disappointment, it's about expanding your capacity to thrive within it. Every great Stoic, from Zeno to Cleans, faced ruin before finding wisdom. Your romantic journey is no different. The awkward moments, the rejections, the unmet expectations, they're not roadblocks, they're the path, and when you walk it with Amor, Fati, something shifts. You stop fearing the stumble and start dancing with the process. That's when confidence becomes unbreakable, not because everything goes right, but because nothing can go wrong. Stoic philosophy has a radical idea at its core, one that most men today overlook when it comes to dating. Every person, regardless of gender, is fundamentally equal in dignity and worth. This wasn't just theoretical for the Stoics, it was a lived practice. Epictetus, despite being born a slave, taught that no external status, wealth, beauty, or social standing determines a person's true value. What matters is character. Apply this to modern dating, and you uncover a profound truth. The anxiety many men feel around women vanishes the moment they stop seeing them as prizes to be won and start recognizing them as fellow travelers in life. Think about how most dating advice today frames interactions with women: strategies to impress, lines to manipulate, games to create false attraction. Underneath all that noise is a toxic assumption. Women are gatekeepers of validation, and men must perform to earn their approval. No wonder so many men feel nervous. They've turned every conversation into a high-stakes audition. The Stoics would call this a slavery of the mind. When you pedestalize someone, you automatically shrink yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It's ridiculous not to escape from your own vices, which is possible, while trying to escape the vices of others, which is impossible." In other words, fixating on her judgment of you is a distraction from the only thing you truly control, your own integrity. Here's the shift that changes everything. Instead of walking into a conversation thinking, "How can I make her like me?" ask, "Do I even like her?" That simple flip removes the power imbalance. Suddenly, you're not a beggar seeking approval, you're an equal evaluating compatibility. This isn't about arrogance, it's about mutual respect. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all people. When you internalize that a woman's worth isn't tied to her attractiveness, and yours isn't tied to her reaction, interactions become lighter, more authentic. You've probably seen the opposite in action: the guy who stumbles over his words, laughs too hard at her jokes, or molds his opinions to match hers. That's not connection, that's servitude. Contrast that with the man who engages with genuine curiosity, who isn't afraid to disagree playfully, who listens not to strategize but to understand. That's Stoic confidence, rooted in the unshakable belief that you have as much to offer as anyone else. For practice, try the equal footing exercise. Next time you're talking to someone you're attracted to, consciously notice when you're filtering your words to please her. Then pause, ask yourself, would I say this to a close friend? If not, course correct. Speak with the same ease and honesty you'd use with someone you respect, but don't idolize. The goal isn't to be indifferent, it's to be balanced. The modern pickup artist mentality thrives on scarcity, the idea that attractive women are rare prizes you must compete for. Stoicism rejects that illusion. Musonius Rufus, a Stoic teacher, argued that women are just as capable as men in wisdom and virtue and should be treated accordingly. When you truly believe that, your energy shifts. You stop seeing a crowded bar as a battleground and start seeing it as a room full of potential friends, collaborators, or partners, each with their own complexities, not just their looks. Here's the litmus test. If you wouldn't tolerate someone fawning over you for shallow reasons, why expect women to? Real connection begins when you meet others eye to eye, not as targets or trophies, but as human beings. That's the Stoic way: confidence without conquest, interest without insecurity, and the quiet strength of knowing your worth isn't up for debate. Imagine two men at a bar. The first checks his phone constantly, desperate for a reply to his last text. He laughs too loudly at her jokes, nods along to opinions he doesn't share, his entire mood swinging on her reactions. The second, he's fully present, engaged but unfazed. If she disagrees, he doesn't backtrack. If she's disinterested, he doesn't crumble. What's the difference? One is ruled by an external scorecard, her validation as his measure of worth. The other lives by an internal one, where his integrity is the only metric that matters. This is Stoic confidence in its purest form. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who challenged Roman gender norms, drilled this into his students. Wealth and status are indifferent, only our character merits concern. He wasn't just preaching, he lived it. Exiled twice, stripped of possessions, he remained unshaken because his self-worth wasn't tied to others' opinions. Apply this to dating, and you unlock a revolutionary mindset. The only approval you need is your own. Not in an egotistical way, but as a quiet assurance that you're acting with courage, honesty, and authenticity regardless of outcomes. Here's how it works. Most men unconsciously outsource their self-assessment to women's reactions. A match on a dating app, confidence surges, a cancelled date. Self-doubt creeps in. This roller coaster isn't just exhausting, it's a recipe for neediness. The Stoics offer a better way. Each night, they practiced evening reviews, not tallying wins or losses, but asking, did I act with virtue today? Not did she like me, but was I respectful? Did I stay true to my values? That subtle shift changes everything. Let's get practical. Create your internal scorecard with 3 core virtues, traits you admire in yourself when you're at your best. Maybe it's courage, initiating conversations despite fear, honesty, expressing genuine interest, not manipulative lines, or resilience, not taking rejection personally. After any interaction, judge yourself only against these standards. Did you approach her despite nerves? Score yourself high on courage, even if she wasn't interested. Did you hide your quirks to seem more appealing? Note where honesty faltered. This isn't about perfection, it's about alignment, the beauty of this system. It's failure-proof. A woman's disinterest doesn't mean you failed, only that you haven't found the right fit. And if you did compromise your virtues, that's data for growth, not condemnation. Musonius taught that we disgrace ourselves when we act contrary to our principles out of fear or desire for pleasure. In dating terms, chasing validation by pretending to be someone you're not is the real loss, not her walking away. You'll know this mindset is working when external reactions stop dictating your self-worth. The text left on read, irrelevant if you know you communicated with integrity. The flirtation that didn't escalate, fine, because you resisted people-pleasing. Over time, this internal anchor makes you more attractive. Confidence isn't about guaranteeing positive outcomes, it's about trusting yourself to handle any outcome. That's the power of an internal scorecard. It turns every interaction, even the awkward ones, into proof that you're becoming unshakable. One final exercise. Next time you're tempted to seek reassurance from someone else's reaction, pause. Ask, what would my best version do here? Then act not for her response, but for your own self-respect. That's the Stoic secret to confidence. It's not about being flawless. It's about being free. There's a reason elite athletes train in harsh conditions, running hills in the rain, lifting weights in unheated gyms. They know comfort is the enemy of growth. The Stoics took this further, turning discomfort into a philosophy. Cato the Younger, one of Rome's most uncompromising Stoics, didn't just endure hardship, he sought it out. Wearing thin robes in winter, walking barefoot on rough roads, eating modest meals even when he could afford feasts. Why? To prove to himself that nothing external could shake his inner resolve. That's the power of voluntary discomfort, not just surviving life's challenges, but inviting them to forge unbreakable confidence. Think of social confidence like a muscle. You wouldn't expect to bench press 200 pounds on your first try. You'd start small, adding weight gradually. The same applies to approaching women or handling awkward silences. Each time you willingly step into discomfort, holding eye contact a second longer than feels natural, striking up a conversation with a stranger at the grocery store, you're adding emotional weight to your personal barbell. Cato called this ascesis, deliberate practice. He'd purposefully place himself in situations where he might be ridiculed or rejected, not because he enjoyed humiliation, but to immunize himself against fear. Here's how to apply this today. Start with micro-challenges tailored to your current edge of discomfort. If small talk makes you nervous, commit to complimenting one stranger daily, not with an agenda, just a genuine, great jacket as you pass by. Notice how your body reacts, the quickened pulse, the urge to look away. That's the resistance you're training against. The Stoics believed true courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action despite fear. And each time you move through that discomfort, you rewire your brain's threat response. Take cold approaches. Most men avoid them because the idea of rejection feels like a threat to their survival, an evolutionary hangover where social exclusion meant death. But when you voluntarily approach 10 women in a week with zero expectation, something shifts. The first few times, your hands might shake. By the 10th, you realize the worst-case scenario, a polite "no thanks" is survivable. You've just expanded your comfort zone through exposure, exactly like Cato conditioning himself to cold by sleeping on bare stone. The key is progression. Just as lifting the same light weights forever won't build strength, staying in your comfort zone won't build confidence. Once eye contact feels easy, try holding it while asking a bold question. What's something you're passionate about? When that becomes manageable, escalate to playful teasing or debate. This isn't about becoming someone else, it's about uncovering the confident version of yourself buried under layers of avoidance. Modern psychology backs this. Exposure therapy, the gold standard for treating phobias, works on the same principle. Gradual, repeated exposure to feared situations reduces their power. The Stoics were ahead of their time. They didn't just preach this, they systematized it. Seneca would schedule poverty days where he'd live on bread and water, not out of austerity, but to appreciate his wealth and prove he could thrive without it. Apply that to dating. Delete your apps for a week and approach people in person. You'll quickly discover that rejection stings less than the regret of never trying. One critical nuance: voluntary discomfort isn't self-punishment. Cato didn't torture himself to prove his toughness. He did it to cultivate freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of others' opinions, from the fragile ego that collapses at the slightest slight. Every time you willingly face social discomfort, you're declaring, "I define my worth, not external validation." That's the bedrock of confidence. So start small, but start today. Take the stairs instead of the elevator to practice embracing effort. Sit with awkward silences instead of rushing to fill them. Wear an outfit that draws attention if you normally hide in neutral tones. Each act is a brick in the foundation of Stoic confidence, the kind that stays unshaken because it's been tested, not sheltered. As Cato showed, the man who seeks discomfort never has to fear it. And when you stop running from life's minor pains, you'll find they were the whetstone sharpening you all along. Here's your 7-day challenge designed to systematically rewire your brain's response to social discomfort, one deliberate, escalating step at a time. Each day builds on the last, combining Stoic mindset shifts with actionable exercises that transform anxiety into empowerment. Day 1. The compliment catalyst your mission. Give 3 genuine compliments to strangers, not just nice shoes, but something specific that shows you're paying attention. That color makes your eyes pop, or you have a really welcoming smile. The Stoic twist: do this expecting nothing in return. No smiles, no thank yous. Your goal isn't to brighten their day, though it might, but to prove to yourself that you can act with kindness regardless of the reaction. This is Amor, Fati in motion, loving the act itself, not the outcome. Day 2, the 3-second rule. Approach one stranger anywhere within 3 seconds of spotting them. No overthinking, no rehearsing lines, just, "Hey, I noticed your book, what's it about?" Or, "That's an impressive coffee order." The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, preempting hesitation by acting before fear floods your system. Today's lesson: anxiety thrives on delay, speed starves it. Day 3. The opinion gambit: voice an unpopular opinion in a low-stakes setting. At a cafe, tell the barista you think pumpkin spice is overrated. In line at the gym, say you prefer dumbbells to machines. The point isn't to provoke, it's to practice standing by your views without apology. Epictetus trained his students to speak their truth even when mocked, writing, "If someone tells you that so and so speaks ill of you, don't defend yourself against the rumors, but reply, yes, and he doesn't know the half of it, I'm worse." Humor disarms tension, and today you'll learn that disagreement doesn't equal rejection. Day 4. The cold read: start a conversation by making an observation about someone's personality. "You seem like someone who'd have a killer playlist," or "I bet you're the planner in your friend group." This does two things. It forces you to engage authentically, no scripted pickup lines, and it trains you to read social cues, a skill the Stoics valued as highly as logic. If you're wrong, laugh it off. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to not be like your enemy." In dating terms, the best response to awkwardness is to own it. Day 5. The rejection request: ask for something you're sure will be denied. A discount at a chain store, a stranger's seat on the bus, a free sample where none's offered. This isn't about being rude, it's about detoxifying the word no. Notice how the world doesn't end when you're refused. Seneca practiced poverty to appreciate wealth. Today, you'll practice rejection to appreciate resilience. Day 6. The spotlight sprint: do something mildly attention-grabbing in public. Sing a verse of a song aloud, strike a superhero pose for 10 seconds, or wear mismatched shoes. The goal: to prove social judgment is survivable. Cato drank wine while his enemies mocked him, then switched to water when they praised his restraint, just to show how little their opinions mattered. Today, you'll learn the same. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to judge you. Day 7. The full approach: combine all 6 days into one seamless interaction. Compliment her style, share an opinion, make a playful guess about her, and ask for her number, all while embracing any outcome. The Stoics didn't train for specific battles, they trained for any battle. Today, you'll prove to yourself that confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the certainty that you can handle whatever follows when you act with courage. By the end of this week, you'll have done more than desensitize yourself to discomfort. You'll have reprogrammed your relationship with fear itself, because real confidence isn't about eliminating nerves, it's about hearing them whisper and choosing to step forward anyway. Most men think talking to women requires a flood of words, witty jokes, elaborate stories, rapid-fire questions to keep her engaged, but the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most powerful men, filled his private journals with phrases so concise they could fit on a coin. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That's the essence of speaking with purpose, cutting through the noise to convey substance, not just sound. Picture 2 men at a party. The first leans in, talking non-stop about his job, his travels, his opinions, barely pausing to breathe. The second listens more than he speaks, but when he does, his words carry weight. He asks one thoughtful question that makes her pause. What's something you believed years ago that you've completely changed your mind about? That's Stoic communication in action. It's not about filling silence, it's about creating space for meaning. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations wasn't written to impress, it was a private checklist for living with integrity. Every sentence serves a function, no fluff, no posturing. Apply that to dating. Instead of rehearsing lines to sound clever, focus on conveying who you are with clarity. A simple, "I love how your face lights up when you talk about that," holds more power than a memorized monologue. The Stoics called this parrhesia, fearless, frank speech. Not bluntness, but authenticity stripped of performance. Here's the shift most men miss. Women aren't waiting for you to entertain them. They're gauging whether you're someone worth knowing. Rambling about your accomplishments or over-explaining your thoughts doesn't build connection. It betrays insecurity. Contrast that with the man who pauses before answering, who lets silence hang without rushing to fill it. That quiet confidence signals self-possession, a trait the Stoics prized above all. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid. In other words, embrace the occasional lull in conversation rather than forcing words to mask discomfort. To practice this, try the 3-question rule. Before speaking, ask, is this true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it fails even one test, reconsider. Marcus wrote, let your speech be like a tapestry, every thread purposeful. Next time you're on a date, notice how often you speak out of nervous habit versus intentional contribution. Most men drown their chances in unnecessary words. Another exercise, study great listeners. Notice how they respond not with their own stories, but with prompts that draw out depth. Tell me more about why that mattered to you, or what did that experience teach you? These are Stoic questions. They seek understanding, not validation. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as we speak. When you focus less on impressing and more on understanding, conversations stop feeling like performances and start feeling like discoveries. Here's the ultimate test. Can you sit comfortably in silence with someone without scrambling to break it? That's the hallmark of Stoic confidence. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet his journals reveal a man more concerned with self-mastery than speeches. You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. Apply that to dating. A paused conversation isn't a failure. It's an opportunity to listen, to observe, to be present. And when you do speak, let it be with the crisp clarity of a man who knows his words carry weight because he chooses them carefully. The irony, the less you try to impress, the more impressive you become. Not because you've perfected some technique, but because you've stopped seeing conversation as a battlefield and started treating it as shared ground. That's the Stoic secret. Speak not to be heard, but to be understood. And when you do, something remarkable happens. People lean in to listen. There's a reason the ancient Stoics placed such emphasis on mastering our reactions to beauty. Not because they were Puritans who rejected pleasure, but because they understood how easily admiration can slip into servitude. Epictetus, the philosopher born into slavery, put it bluntly, when you see a beautiful woman, remind yourself that what you're drawn to is nothing more than skin and tissue. If you could see her internal organs, the attraction would vanish. Harsh, maybe, but his point wasn't to deny beauty's appeal. It was to expose the illusion that beauty holds intrinsic value. The Stoics weren't against appreciation, they were against enslavement to it. Consider how most men interact with attraction today. They see a stunning woman and immediately inflate her worth in their minds, as if her appearance grants her some higher authority over their emotions. They stumble over words, seek her approval, or worse, diminish their own dignity to win her attention. That's not admiration, that's worship, and as the Stoics knew, anything you worship controls you. Seneca captured this perfectly. No man is free who is a slave to the flesh. He wasn't condemning desire, but warning against letting it dictate your worth or behavior. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Physical beauty is indifferent, a Stoic term meaning it holds no moral weight. A sunset is beautiful, but you don't beg for its validation. A sculpture can be breathtaking, yet you don't rearrange your life to please it. The same detachment applies to human beauty. You can acknowledge it, even savor it, without handing it power over your composure. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, "Take away your opinion about what gives you pain, and you stand invincible." Apply that to dating. If a woman's looks don't trigger desperation or unworthiness in you, you're free to engage as an equal. For modern practice, try the beauty deconstruction exercise. Next time you catch yourself overvaluing someone's appearance, mentally break it down. What exactly am I reacting to? Symmetry, youthfulness, cultural conditioning. Then ask, would I respect this person less if she were plain? Would I respect myself more if she approved of me? This isn't about cynicism, it's about clarity. When you dissect attraction, you realize how much of it is projection, not reality. Epictetus took this further with his students. He'd have them envision beautiful people aging, falling ill, even decaying, not to be morbid, but to train their minds to see beyond the surface. If you long for her hair, remember it's just dead keratin, he'd say. Again, the goal wasn't to eliminate desire, but to contextualize it. When you recognize beauty's fleeting nature, you stop treating it as a prize and start seeing it as a neutral trait, like height or eye color. This mindset has a paradoxical effect. It actually enhances your appeal. Women sense when a man isn't awestruck by their looks but genuinely interested in them. The guy who can compliment her dress without fawning over her body, who listens to her ideas as intently as he admires her smile, that's the man who stands out. Because he's not orbiting her beauty, he's inviting her into his world. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who championed gender equality, took this even further. He taught that women possess the same capacity for virtue as men, and that true partnership requires seeing beyond aesthetics. Imagine applying that today. Instead of swiping based on photos, you'd seek someone whose character resonates with yours. The Stoics wouldn't dismiss chemistry, but they'd insist it's the least interesting thing about a person. Here's your challenge. Next time you're drawn to someone physically, pause. Acknowledge the attraction, then consciously shift focus to something deeper: her laugh, her curiosity, the way she argues her point. Train yourself to notice beauty without being governed by it. That's the Stoic balance: eyes open, mind steady, worth untouchable. Because real confidence isn't intimidated by beauty, it's indifferent to its power. Picture this scenario: you're at a party and someone you're attracted to locks eyes with you from across the room. Your pulse quickens, not from excitement, but from the dread of what to say next. Most men freeze in this moment, relying on half-formed pickup lines or forced small talk. But the Stoics had a better method: premeditatio, the art of mental rehearsal. This wasn't about scripting every word, it was about preparing your mind to stay grounded, no matter how flirtatious or intense the interaction became. Epictetus, who trained his students to face life's unpredictability with poise, would often say, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to its acting." In modern terms, anxiety thrives on the unknown. By mentally walking through potential scenarios, playful teasing, unexpected compliments, even awkward silences, you strip them of their power to unsettle you. Think of it like a fire drill. You don't wait for the alarm to panic. You practice the exit route until it becomes second nature. Here's how to apply this. Before heading out, spend 5 minutes visualizing common social dynamics. Imagine a woman playfully challenging you. "You're pretty confident, aren't you?" Most men stumble here, either puffing up with arrogance or deflecting with self-deprecation. But the Stoic response: a calm smile, and "only when the company's good." Light, unshaken, and utterly authentic. This isn't about memorizing lines. It's about conditioning your mind to default to composure, not panic. Seneca took this further. He'd rehearse not just conversations, but his emotional reactions to them. Misfortune weighs most heavily on those who expect nothing but good fortune, he wrote. Translation: if you've already imagined handling rejection or teasing with grace, the real thing feels like a rerun, not a crisis. Try this tonight. Visualize a flirtatious exchange going sideways. Maybe she tests you with, "You say that to all the girls," and instead of scrambling to defend yourself, you lean into the tension. "Only the ones who make me forget my rehearsed lines." Notice how the pressure dissipates when you've already lived the moment in your mind. The key is specificity. Don't just vaguely think, "I'll stay cool." Envision the details: the tone of her voice, the background noise, the way your breath feels steady even as your heart races. The Stoics called this phantasiae, vivid mental impressions. Athletes use it to perfect free throws, soldiers use it to stay calm under fire, and you'll use it to transform social anxiety into effortless presence. But here's the twist: premeditation isn't about controlling outcomes, it's about mastering your half of the interaction. Imagine you're an actor rehearsing your part, not the entire play. You can't dictate her lines, but you can ensure yours are delivered with conviction. That's the Stoic edge. When you've already weathered potential storms in your mind, the real conversation becomes a playground, not a battlefield. For tangible practice, try the 3-scenario drill. Each morning, script 3 flirtatious or challenging interactions in your notes app. Not word-for-word dialogues, but emotional blueprints. Example: if she playfully insults my shirt, I'll laugh and agree, yeah, it's my "I let my dog dress me" look. Then, when real life mirrors your rehearsal, you're not caught off guard, you're prepared. That's the difference between reacting and responding. And when you inevitably face a scenario you didn't rehearse, that's where the deeper training kicks in. The Stoics didn't just practice specific challenges, they cultivated an attitude, one of curiosity rather than fear. So when she throws a curveball, you're not thrown. You're intrigued. "How nobody's ever said that to me before, tell me more." That's the mark of true confidence, not knowing every answer but trusting yourself to navigate the unknown. The irony: the more you rehearse detachment, the more present you become. Because when you're not frantically grasping for the right thing to say, you start saying the real thing. And that's when connections deepen, sparks ignite, and confidence stops being a performance and starts being your nature. Consider how most men approach dating today. Every text sent is analyzed for hidden meaning, every date is treated as an audition, and every interaction feels like a make-or-break moment. This obsession with outcomes turns what should be a natural process of connection into a high-pressure performance. The Stoics, from Epictetus to Musonius Rufus, offered a radically different approach. Pursue relationships with virtue as your compass, not desperation as your engine. They called this prohersis, the understanding that while you can't control results, you can always control your intentions and actions. Take the modern phenomenon of ghosting. The average guy spends hours dissecting why she stopped replying. Was his last message too eager? Not clever enough? The Stoic perspective: her reasons are irrelevant. What matters is whether you acted with integrity. Were you respectful, authentic, present in the moment? If so, her silence isn't a verdict on your worth. It's simply data about compatibility. Marcus Aurelius framed this perfectly. "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I'll gladly change. What I seek is the truth, which never harmed anyone." Apply that to dating. If a woman isn't interested, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're one step closer to someone who is. Here's the critical difference between Stoic detachment and apathy. Detachment isn't about not caring, it's about caring differently. Instead of fixating on whether she likes you, focus on whether you're showing up as someone you respect. A man who asks thoughtful questions, listens without agenda, and shares his genuine opinions regardless of the reaction isn't just more attractive, he's more at peace. Contrast that with a guy who molds himself to whatever he thinks she wants, sweating over every word. The Stoics would call that self-betrayal. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." In dating terms, bravery isn't about fearless approaches, it's about refusing to compromise your character for approval. For a tangible example, imagine 2 men on first dates. The first is hyper-focused on success. Did he impress her? Will there be a second date? His energy is tense, his laughter forced. The second is there to discover, does he enjoy her company? Do their values align? He's relaxed, fully engaged, not because he's indifferent, but because his goal isn't conquest, it's clarity. That's Stoic detachment in action, investing fully in the process while releasing the outcome. Musonius Rufus, who taught Stoicism to both men and women, emphasized that relationships should cultivate mutual growth, not serve as ego validation. He'd say a date isn't a test, it's an exchange. If you leave having learned something, shared something, or simply practiced patience, that's a win regardless of her interest level. This mindset flips the script. Instead of asking, "Did she like me?" you ask, "Did I act in alignment with my principles?" The first question hands your confidence to someone else. The second keeps it firmly in your hands. Practical application. Try the virtue first experiment. For 1 week, enter every interaction with a single intention. To practice one Stoic quality: courage, initiating despite nerves; wisdom, asking insight-filled questions; or justice, treating her with respect, not as a means to an end. Judge the interaction solely on whether you upheld that virtue. You'll notice something profound. When your worth isn't tied to her response, anxiety gives way to authenticity. And ironically, that's often when connection blossoms. The Stoics didn't just preach this, they lived it. Cato the Younger, known for his unshakable integrity, once divorced his wife only to later remarry her when political circumstances changed. Critics mocked him, but he was unmoved. His choices were based on principle, not perception. That's the core of outcome detachment. When you stop needing relationships to validate you, you start choosing them to enrich you. So next time you feel that familiar grip of, "What if this doesn't work out?" remember the Stoic reframe. What if it already has? Because every interaction where you stay true to yourself is a success, no matter how it ends. Here's a thought experiment that changes everything. Imagine you're on your deathbed looking back at your life, not at the failures or rejections, but at the chances you didn't take, the conversations you avoided, the connections you left unexplored because fear held you back. That's the essence of memento mori, the Stoic practice of remembering mortality. While most men tremble at the thought of rejection, the Stoics understood something far more painful: the sting of regret from never trying at all. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That's the mindset shift that transforms hesitation into action. Think about how differently you'd approach women if you truly internalized that life is short, not as a morbid fixation, but as a liberating truth. The guy who hesitates to approach someone at a coffee shop isn't just avoiding potential embarrassment. He's trading a moment of discomfort for a lifetime of "what if?" The Stoics drilled this into their students. Death isn't a distant event. It's a constant companion reminding us to live fully now. Seneca put it bluntly, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The rejection you fear lasts seconds. The regret of inaction can linger for decades. Here's how to apply this. Next time you feel that familiar pull to stay safe, pause and ask, "If I were dying tomorrow, would I care more about her momentary reaction or my own courage?" This isn't about becoming reckless, it's about realigning your priorities. The ancient Stoics carried coins engraved with skulls or kept skeletons at their feasts. Morbid, maybe, but it worked. When you viscerally grasp that time is limited, trivial concerns fade, and what's truly important rises to the surface. Consider this real-world example. A study published in the Journal of Palliative Medicine asked terminally ill patients about their deepest regrets. The most common answer: "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." Not a single person said, "I wish I'd worried more about awkward silences." That's the power of memento mori. It cuts through social conditioning and reveals what actually matters. For practical training, try the deathbed audit. Every evening, reflect, if today were my last, would I be proud of how I showed up? Did I speak when fear said, "Stay silent"? Did I express genuine interest instead of hiding behind cool indifference? This practice isn't about guilt, it's about course correction. Over time, you'll notice your brain rewiring. Hesitation gives way to action, not because rejection stings less, but because regret terrifies more. There's a paradox here. Embracing life's brevity doesn't make interactions heavier, it makes them lighter. when you stop seeing a simple high as a high-stakes gamble and start viewing it as a fleeting chance to connect, something shifts. The pressure dissolves. You're no longer the guy rehearsing perfect lines. You're the man who knows life's too short for anything less than authenticity. That's the secret source of attraction, not polished pickup tactics, but the quiet confidence of someone who's decided to live without apologies. Marcus Aurelius left us a challenge. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life, now take what's left and live it properly. So here's your invitation. Let death be your wingman, not as a dark cloud, but as the clarifying force that reminds you rejection fades, but regret that lingers. And the man who lives with that awareness doesn't just approach women with boldness, he approaches life that way. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your stomach tightens into knots. Most men interpret these sensations as proof they're about to fail, signals to retreat. But the Stoics saw something else entirely, raw energy waiting to be redirected. Marcus Aurelius described nervousness not as weakness, but as the fire that forges focus. What if your anxiety isn't a warning sign, but fuel? Science backs this ancient wisdom. Researchers at Harvard Business School found that when people relabeled pre-performance jitters as excitement, literally telling themselves, "I'm pumped, not panicked," their confidence and competence soared. The physiological symptoms of fear and exhilaration are nearly identical. Rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, heightened awareness. The only difference is the story we attach to them. Epictetus, who trained his students to master their perceptions, put it simply: men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. That pounding in your chest before approaching someone, it's not fear, it's your body priming you for peak performance. Here's how to flip the script in real time. Next time you feel those familiar nerves before a conversation, pause. Instead of resisting the sensations, lean into them with curiosity. This energy means I care. Now, where can I direct it? Think of it like adrenaline before a race. Without it, you'd be sluggish. The Stoics called this turning obstacles upside down, taking what appears to hinder you and wielding it as an advantage. Consider two men at a networking event. The first feels his hands tremble as he reaches for a drink and thinks, "I'm such a mess, everyone can see I'm nervous." He shrinks into the background. The second notices the same physiological response and thinks, "I'm buzzing with energy, time to engage." He channels it into animated storytelling and confident eye contact. Same biology, different narrative. That's Stoic reframing in action. For practical training, try the physiological hack. When anxiety flares, physically shift your posture, stand taller, roll your shoulders back, take a deep breath that fills your diaphragm. Then declare silently or aloud, "This isn't fear, it's fuel." Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Flood your mind with images of warriors harnessing nerves before battle, athletes transforming pressure into precision, performers converting stage fright into charisma. Your body is giving you the same tools. It's your job to choose the narrative. Another technique, the 3-second rule of redirection. When you catch yourself interpreting butterflies as disaster, interrupt the pattern within 3 seconds. Whisper energy for excellence, then immediately focus outward. Compliment someone's outfit, ask an engaging question, or share an observation. Anxiety thrives on inward focus, action dissolves it. The Stoics weren't passive bystanders to their emotions, they were active alchemists turning leaden fear into golden opportunity. Picture a guitarist stepping on stage. The crowd's energy could paralyze him or propel him to play with more passion than ever. Social interactions work the same way. Those nerves aren't your enemy, they're your edge. Seneca practiced speaking in crowded forums specifically to feel this rush, writing, "I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies." Every flutter in your stomach is a chance to prove to yourself that you're the kind of man who transforms energy into excellence, not excuses. So next time your body kicks into high gear before a conversation, smile. That's not fear, it's your Stoic superpower awakening. There's a dangerous illusion that traps most men in dating: the belief that any one interaction holds the power to make or break them. A single rejection feels like a verdict on their worth. A missed connection becomes a life-altering loss, and every awkward moment lingers like a permanent stain. Seneca saw this mindset for what it was, a form of self-imposed slavery. In one of his most piercing letters, he tells his friend Lucilius, "You cry that you've lost the woman you love. But didn't you also love the stars? Yet they still shine whether you gaze at them or not." That's the essence of Stoic abundance, not callous indifference, but the unshakable knowing that no single person or outcome defines your destiny. Think of it like this: imagine you're holding a single coin in your hand. If that coin is all you have, losing it feels catastrophic. But if you have a vault full of treasure, that same loss becomes trivial. The Stoics applied this to relationships. When Seneca's own wife passed away, he grieved deeply, but he never collapsed into despair. Why? Because he'd spent a lifetime cultivating richness in friendships, philosophy, and purpose. Her death was a blow, but not the end. Apply that to modern dating. If your self-worth hinges on one person's approval, you've already handed them the keys to your emotional prison. Here's where most men go wrong. They approach interactions with what psychologists call scarcity mentality, the belief that opportunities are limited, so each one must be seized at any cost. You see this in the guy who tolerates disrespect just to keep a conversation going, or who obsessively replays a ghosting as if it were his last chance at love. Contrast that with the Stoic alternative, abundance mentality. Not the arrogant assumption that you're drowning in options, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your value isn't contingent on any single moment. Seneca wrote, "Fortune can take away what she has given, but not what we have earned for ourselves. Your character, your growth, your capacity to connect, these are yours to keep regardless of outcomes." For tangible practice, try the 5 sources drill. List 5 pillars of your identity completely unrelated to dating: your skills, your friendships, your contributions at work or in your community. Whenever a rejection stings, revisit this list. Like Seneca's stars, these lights haven't dimmed. This isn't about suppressing disappointment, it's about contextualizing it. The Stoics weren't immune to pain, they just refused to let it overshadow everything else. Now, let's expose the irony. Abundance mentality isn't just a coping mechanism, it's a magnet. Women and people in general can smell desperation from miles away. The guy who's unfazed by a lukewarm response isn't being aloof, he's signaling that his world is full enough to survive a no. That's why Seneca urged his students to cultivate many interests, so that if one branch is cut, the tree still stands. When you're not clinging to every interaction as a lifeline, you become the kind of man people want to hold onto. Here's the ultimate test. Can you walk away from a conversation that isn't flowing and still feel whole? Not out of pride, but out of genuine contentment with your own company. That's Stoic abundance in action, because when you stop treating connections as scarce commodities, you start recognizing them for what they truly are: bonuses to an already rich life, not requirements for survival. And that's when the real magic happens. The less you need, the more you attract. Ancient Stoics understood something modern science now confirms. Your external demeanor doesn't just reflect your inner state, it actively shapes it. Seneca often spoke of how carrying oneself with deliberate poise could steel the mind against tumult, while Epictetus drilled his students on the physical markers of self-command: steady hands, measured speech, and unwavering gaze. This wasn't about vanity, it was about engineering confidence from the outside in. Think of it like reverse engineering calm. By mastering your expressions, you convince your nervous system there's nothing to fear. Start with posture. The Stoics weren't just metaphorically upright, they physically embodied it. Ancient texts describe how students practiced standing like a column, spine aligned as if suspended by a thread from the heavens. This wasn't empty theatrics. Modern research shows expansive postures boost testosterone and lower cortisol, essentially tricking your brain into feeling dominant. Try the lion stance exercise from Musonius Rufus. Plant your feet shoulder-width apart, roll your shoulders back until your chest opens, and imagine your head floating upward. Hold this for 60 seconds before social interactions. The effect is immediate. Shallow, fight or flight breathing shifts to deep, rhythmic inhales, and your voice gains resonant depth. Then there's the Stoic practice of oculus firmus, the unblinking gaze. Roman nobles trained their sons to maintain eye contact through distractions, like clapping near their faces or shouting insults. The goal wasn't to intimidate, but to project unwavering presence. Try this modern adaptation. During conversations, focus on gently holding your partner's gaze by noticing the color shifts in their irises. Not staring, but anchoring. Epictetus warned against darting eyes that betray a scattered mind. And he was right. Neurobiology reveals breaking eye contact too often activates stress circuits, while steady engagement signals amygdala calm. Voice modulation was another Stoic obsession. When Julius Caesar's speeches held crowds rapt even in downpours, it wasn't just charisma, it was technical discipline. Stoic orators rehearsed with pebbles in their mouths to articulate clearly under pressure, and they'd practice speaking while submerged in baths to control breath support. You don't need marbles to replicate this. Try the water glass drill. Fill a glass to the brim, hold it at chest level, and speak slowly enough that not a drop spills. This forces the diaphragmatic breathing. The Stoics prized deep belly inhales that prevent vocal tremors. Record yourself before and after. The difference is startling. But the master key was synchronizing all elements. Marcus Aurelius wrote of harmonizing the chariot, aligning facial expressions with gestures, tone with intention. The Stoics abhorred incongruence, the smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the confident words undercut by fidgeting hands. For practice, they'd have students deliver philosophy lectures while balancing scrolls on their heads or standing on uneven stones. The modern equivalent: film yourself answering tough questions, e.g., what's your greatest flaw, while maintaining perfect stillness. Review the footage, note where your brow furrows or shoulders hitch. These micro-expressions leak anxiety. Here's the deeper truth the Stoics grasped: physical mastery isn't separate from mental mastery. When your body learns to default to calm, your mind follows. Like a dancer whose muscles know the steps before conscious thought kicks in, your posture, gaze, and voice can become autonomous allies. That's the secret behind their legendary composure. Not the absence of nerves, but a system so trained that grace becomes reflex. And in that reflex lies real power, the kind that doesn't just impress others, but fundamentally changes how you experience yourself. Modern dating culture bombards men with the same toxic message: if you're not effortlessly charming, you're doomed. Entire industries peddle canned openers, manufactured charisma, and psychological tricks to hack attraction. But the Stoics saw through this illusion 2,000 years ago. Musonius Rufus, the radical teacher who welcomed female students in an era when women were barred from philosophy, put it bluntly: a man who relies on wit to conceal his emptiness is like a gilded coffin, impressive at first glance but rotten within. That's the heart of Stoic dating, rejecting the cheap currency of charm in favor of the enduring wealth of character. Consider two men at a dinner party. The first dazzles with rehearsed stories and calculated wit, laughing just a bit too loudly at his own jokes. The second speaks less but listens more, asks unexpected questions, and isn't afraid of thoughtful silences. Who leaves the deeper impression? Charm is like fireworks, bright but fleeting. Character is the steady glow of embers, warming long after the spectacle fades. Marcus Aurelius warned against those who spray their words like cheap perfume, preferring substance over sheen. In today's terms, swipe culture rewards the former, but meaningful connection belongs to the latter. Here's where most men get trapped. They mistake charm for confidence when in reality, charm is often confidence's imposter, a performance masking insecurity. The guy who leans on pickup lines and rote flirting isn't commanding the room, he's hostage to a script. The Stoics called this prosopopoia, wearing a mask crafted for applause. Contrast that with the man whose quiet assurance comes not from tricks, but from an unshakable commitment to his principles. Epictetus, born into slavery, became Rome's most sought-after teacher, not because he charmed his students, but because his integrity was undeniable. Don't explain your philosophy, he said, embody it. The practical shift starts with ruthless self-auditing. Ask, am I trying to impress or to connect? Charm seeks approval, character offers authenticity. Take humor, the most overrated tool in the dating arsenal. A man who forces jokes to entertain is exhausting. But the one who naturally laughs at life's absurdities, including his own missteps, that's irresistible. Seneca wrote letters mocking Rome's social climbers who strained to be clever rather than true. His remedy, let your speech reflect your soul, not the crowd's whims. For modern application, try the virtue mirror exercise. Each night, review interactions through a Stoic lens. 1. Courage, did I express my real opinions even if they might disappoint? 2. Justice, did I treat her as a full human, not just a conquest? 3. Temperance, did I listen more than I performed? 4. Wisdom, did I seek mutual growth or just validation? This isn't about moral posturing, it's about building the kind of substance that outlasts first impressions. History's greatest Stoics, from Cato to Cleans, were magnetic not because they mastered small talk, but because they radiated gravitas, the weight of lived conviction. The irony, charm is exhausting to maintain, character is effortless to embody. One requires constant calibration to others' reactions, the other flows from alignment with your core. And here's the secret, women, especially those worth pursuing, detect the difference instantly. They've endured enough hollow flattery to spot the man who isn't auditioning but choosing. That's the ultimate Stoic edge. When you stop performing attractiveness, you become genuinely attractive. Not because you've learned to mimic desire, but because you've given yourself permission to be desired exactly as you are. Most people treat rejection like a slap to the face, an injury to be avoided at all costs, but the Stoics, they saw it as a mirror, a chance to examine themselves with unflinching honesty. Marcus Aurelius kept a private journal not to wallow in setbacks, but to dissect them with the precision of a surgeon. The impediment to action advances action, he wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's the radical reframe at the heart of this practice. Every no isn't a verdict on your worth, it's data for your growth. Think of how ancient generals like Scipio Africanus studied their battlefield losses. They didn't just tally the dead, they analyzed terrain, troop positioning, timing, every variable that could be improved. Dating operates on the same principles. When a conversation fizzles or a date goes nowhere, most men default to self-flagellation. I'm terrible at this, or blame shifting, she's just shallow. The Stoic alternative, cold clinical analysis. Start with the 3-column feedback drill. Grab your journal and divide a page into 1. Objective facts, what actually happened. Strip away interpretations, just she ended the conversation after 2 minutes, not she hated me. 2. Controllable factors, where did your influence lie? Your opener, body language over eagerness. 3. External variables, what wasn't yours to command, her mood, distractions, prejudices you couldn't have known. This isn't about assigning fault, it's about identifying leverage points. Epictetus taught his students to distinguish between what's up to us and what's not with surgical precision. When you journal through this lens, patterns emerge. Maybe you realize your go-to stories fall flat because they're performances, not connections, or that you consistently misread polite disinterest as engagement. These aren't failures, they're breakthroughs waiting to happen. For a deeper dive, try Seneca's nightly postmortem. before bed, revisit the day's interactions not with regret but curiosity. Where did I act from ego rather than virtue? What assumptions blinded me? He famously wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than reality." That awkward silence you're replaying, it likely lasted seconds, not the eternity your mind insists. Here's the twist: this practice doesn't just improve your skills, it rewires your emotional responses. Neurologically, when you analyze rejection rather than merely feel it, you shift activity from the amygdala fear center to the prefrontal cortex reasoning hub. The Stoics were proto-neuroscientists here. By ritualizing objective review, they made resilience a habit, not an accident. Practical application: next time you face rejection, ask, what would a Stoic mentor observe? Not, why don't they like me, but what did this reveal about where I'm misaligned? Maybe it exposed rushed vulnerability or humor that landed off-key. These are gifts, course corrections disguised as dead ends. Musonius Rufus took this further with his double exposure exercise. After a setback, he'd have students reenact the moment twice, first exactly as it happened, then with adjustments based on their analysis. The goal wasn't perfection, but plasticity, proving you could adapt in real time. Try this with a trusted friend. Replay that fumbled approach, but insert pauses where you listen more, or swap a canned compliment for genuine curiosity. Feel how the energy shifts. The ultimate Stoic insight: rejection isn't the opposite of success, it's the raw material. Like a blacksmith tempering steel, each no strengthens your discernment, hones your authenticity, and paradoxically makes you more magnetic. Because the man who learns from setbacks stops fearing them, and that's when everything changes. We've journeyed through 20 Stoic techniques, not as isolated tricks, but as layers of an unshakable mindset. Negative visualization immunizes you against fear. The dichotomy of control anchors you in what's yours to command. Voluntary discomfort turns nerves into resilience. Amor Fati transforms rejection into redirection. Together, they form something greater than the sum of their parts, a philosophy for authentic confidence, where every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice virtue, not validation. But here's the truth no ancient text will spell out for you. Wisdom untested is just theory. The Stoics didn't scribble these principles for dusty scrolls. They honed them in the grit of life's arena. Your romantic life is no different. You won't absorb confidence by osmosis, you'll forge it through repetition. So let's make this tangible. Don't try to master all 20 techniques at once, that's the fast track to overwhelm. Instead, choose 3 to focus on this week. Maybe you'll start with premeditatio malorum, mentally rehearsing rejection until it loses its fangs. Pair it with the 3-second rule, approaching conversations before doubt can sabotage you. Then cap it with evening reviews, judging your progress not by her reactions but by your alignment with courage and authenticity. Or perhaps you'll combine voluntary discomfort, striking up conversations where you'd normally hesitate, with the internal scorecard, measuring yourself against your virtues, not your victories. This isn't about perfection. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." Every awkward moment, every fumbled word, every no that stings, these aren't failures. They're the reps that build resilience. The Stoics didn't promise a life without setbacks. They promised the tools to rise from them. And that's the ultimate shift. When you stop seeing dating as a performance to nail and start treating it as a gym for your character, everything changes. So here's your call to arms, or rather, your call to philosophy. Pick 3 techniques, practice them ruthlessly, not for a month, not for a year, but as lifelong disciplines. Because real confidence isn't something you find, it's something you forge, and the anvil is waiting. Strike while the iron's hot.